Good morning, broadcasters. Today, we will be looking at traps to avoid as a presenter. And with me, as our trainer today, we have a dynamic, beautiful woman. When a woman tells you that another woman is beautiful, then truly she is beautiful. So she has about 40 years of, she's been training people for about 40 years as a presenter. And presently she is the Director Programs Operations, Voice of Nigeria. Welcome with me, Mrs. CHINYERE ASHADE. Can we all unmute and give her a round of applause?
You're welcome, ma.
Yeah, welcome, madam.
Thank you so much. Good morning, wonderful colleagues of the broadcast profession. I hope you can all hear me. I hope I'm
Yes, we
hearing.
can.
Yes, we can.
Clearly.
Thank you.
Yes,
and
we can.
Should I say members of the BGF family? Honestly, this is a pleasure. It's an honor to have been, should I say, dragged into this, because Tony literally dragged me into this and I eventually just couldn't say no. But I really want to say a very big thank you to all of you, fantastic BB and of Tony and all other members of the family, the BGF family. Yes, I forayed into broadcasting in 1981 while still trying to get into university. And I was about getting a job, but Ike Nanda said, no, Juanita, that was my main name then. I could give you a job, but I won't. Go back to school. So I did. Before I got into Suka, 88, I was out and I joined Voice of Nigeria, and I've been there ever since to date. And yes, I've had the experience, exposure, and I've also been involved in training. What I have for us this morning is actually something I shared with presenters and the organization. We're talking about the traps to be avoided in presentation. And I'd like to state here that I'm here as a facilitator. So hopefully it's going to be as interactive as possible, because this topic is actually meant to deal with our attitudes as presenters. I'm sure if I could bring this as an aside, many of us probably can identify with a teacher or a medical doctor or a nurse who is one by vocation, by calling, and one who is there circumstantially. We can all tell the difference. The difference is the attitude. Some of them got in there because, yes, they really have the passion, but some just found themselves there. And it reflects in the way they go about their duties. I'm sure we can all reflect, we can all identify. Can I have anyone who can identify with that? Let me know that, let me see we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello,
Can you
yeah.
identify with that?
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, actually.
Good. So we can also bring that into the presentation aspect of our job as broadcasters. We find that some presenters, yes, are there by reason of the passion they have for it, but others are circumstantial practitioners, if I may say so. But it doesn't have to stay that way. There's something that can be done, and that's why we're looking at this today. We want to address the attitudes. Let me start with this statement. I'm sure we've all heard it. It says that a chain is no stronger than its weakest link. Or put another way, it says a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Well, actually, the full statement by Thomas Reid in his publication, Essays on the Intellectual Powers of Man, reads thus. I'd like us to take it. It says, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. For if that fails, the chain fails, and the object that it is holding up falls to the ground. I'll take it again. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. For if that fails, the chain fails, and the object that has been holding up falls to the ground. So perhaps we could also say then that an organization is only as strong or as powerful as its weakest member of staff or employee. Now let's consider that as for us as presenters. In broadcasting, we talk about the broadcast chain, and I'm not going into the technicalities of the movement, or we know we're talking about from the point of the sender to the message and how it finally gets to through the carrier to the receiver. And we all will agree that every point in the chain is manned by people. Now, the presenter has a vital role to play in the broadcast chain. I think there was about sometime last month, we had Chukwudi Okoli-Ogbaja, who took the house on the qualities of a good presenter. And I'm sure we probably still have that somewhere at the back of our minds. And it tells us how important it is to understand these qualities and understand our role if we do not want to be the weak link in the broadcast chain. Yes, we talk about, we have that cliche, broadcasters are born, are not made. That's debatable, acquired by training. Yes, it happens. But even then, some key things have to be there, and that is the basic flair, which we know. So let's just quickly remind ourselves of that. Talking about the presenter and not wanting to be the weak link in the broadcast chain. So that means we have to realize a couple of things. And the first thing that we need to realize as a presenter is that you represent the image of the station. As the presenter, we talk about the presenter being the last gatekeeper, the final bus stop. And so that means you're the one everyone knows. Nobody knows who the DG is. No one knows who your producer is. No one knows who the news editor is. It's all about you. It's all about us as presenters. We represent the image. So whatever we do, however we carry ourselves, the courage we have, it reflects on, oh, that's the standard of that organization. That's what they stand for. That's what they hold on. That's the best they have. And so that tells us just how important it is. We'll get to the traps very soon. We also must remember that there's always someone somewhere, either listening or watching us. Of course, even on radio now, everything has gone virtual. We've got the different media outlets, the social media outlets. So even on radio now, it's not just a matter of being heard, but we're also being seen. So we have to be more conscious of that. In those days, you know, many of you who way back, many of my veteran colleagues here, who know that especially in the radio industry, you could just dress anyhow and go to the studio, read your news, half dressed or funnily dressed. But that can't happen anymore as a presenter. Then we also need to remember that the listener or the viewer, depending on which one now, depends on you to keep him informed, educated, entertained, and so on. So it just tells us how pivotal our role is as presenters. And of course, the listener is the most important person in the broadcast chain, because if the listener doesn't get the message, then the whole essence is defeated. So that listener is very important. So we must do all we can to ensure that the listener does get the message we're trying to put across. Of course, we know the qualities of a good presenter. I don't need to overstress those. A good microphone voice, good command of the language, originality in presentation, be yourself, clarity in articulation, no slurs or affectations. I think we've dealt a lot on that. Good diction, depending on which of the languages you're dealing with, because it's not just about English. I'm sure we have some of our Hausa colleagues, our Fulfulde colleagues here, other colleagues, Yoruba colleagues here too, who broadcast in those languages. But whichever it is, you must be sure that you're using the correct diction. Otherwise, in school, we're taught about something called broadcast noise. Broadcast noise. Has anyone heard about that? Broadcast noise.
Yes.
Okay, good. Could you tell me what your understanding of it is? Let's be interactive now. The lady who said yes. Broadcast noise.
I think it's when the presenter is not being clear enough, when the audience cannot decode what the presenter is trying to pass. So basically the presenter is just blabbing and just not making any sense.
Okay, yeah, well, that's part of it. Could somebody else, does anyone else have something more to add about broadcast noise? Hello? Okay, well, broadcast noise is a whole package, actually. Yes, the presenter might be blabbing and all that, but there could be other nuances, other affectations, other interferences. For instance, on TV, there's a manner a presenter could dress that could pose as broadcast noise. The dressing, the attitude, the look, the mien of that presenter could turn out to be broadcast noise. So we need to guard against that. But that's not what I'm talking about as a trap anyway, but we're just talking about the qualities you need to have. You need to be conscious of that. Of course, you must be confident. Whatever you're doing, you must, if a presenter isn't confident, then you have no business being there. Intelligence, of course, because you should have an understanding of virtually every topic. Warmth, yes, warmth. A presenter must have that, welcoming attitude that makes people want to come back and listen to you tomorrow because you're friendly, you're just cool, you're warm. Resourcefulness, ever ready to do a whole lot of searching for things and all that. Flexibility, you can fit into, various aspects of the production. For instance, you could be a music producer, you could also be strictly news. Some are strictly news, some can be flexible and do both news and programs and flow very well. Knowledge of virtually every subject. So these are just things that we already know, we're just quickly reminding ourselves of. So in terms of, handling content, the presenter is mainly a content disseminator. And to do this effectively, we must also directly or indirectly participate in the generation and processing of data. Gone are the days when we say a presenter is just seen as a mere parrot. No. We have gone past that. So the key chores of a presenter, also we know those, continuity for stations that still have that, some don't, they've dropped that. Program presentation, live or recorded, talk shows, current affairs, social, cultural, music. Like I said, you could be a jack of so-called all trades. News reading, interviewing, commentating. So we've given ourselves a brief background of what we already know, just to juggle our brains a bit and remind us. So now we're going to the traps to be avoided in order to effectively carry out our chores and effectively, highlight, signpost the image of our organization. Well, I have split these traps into two categories, the personality traits and the professional flaws. So the two P's. So I'll be looking forward to, we all know we have our individual temperaments. And these are things that we're born with, but which, as we've been told, society, environment also helps to modify as we grow. We have our various attitudes, which reflect in different ways. We have people who are naturally humble. We have those who are naturally proud. We have those who are unteachable. We have people who are overconfident. We have people who suffer from what we call overfamiliarity. We have people who are just scattered, very disorganized. We have people who are outright lazy. We have people who are complacent. We have people who are sloppy, with being disorganized. These are various attitudes. And you begin to ask yourself, how do these attitudes fit in as a presenter? How would they affect one as a presenter? I remember, because I listened a bit to Mr. Collier's presentation last week, and he talked about pride being an albatross. Yes, but it's not just pride. So many other aspects of these attitudes could also be an albatross. They could have, if one is lazy, if one is sloppy, if one is disorganized, it's going to be a serious problem. So we need to look at our attitudes. We all have our strengths, but we also have our weaknesses. And we must, we must be able to identify our weaknesses and strengthen them the more, work on them, signpost them. But we can't run away from our weaknesses because that could just be our undoing. You can imagine someone who is disorganized and comes into the studio with various sheets of paper to handle a program and is busy. We've even, tossing papers here and there and trying to search for, that doesn't do, especially if you're live, you're on air, you're going live. If it's a recording, well, they could get to stop, and I'm sure the producer will get fed up with you eventually. So we must work on our attitudes. We must identify our weaknesses and work on them. We shouldn't overlook them. We shouldn't sweep them under the carpet. Possibly somebody points them out to them. We shouldn't get offended. It's for our own good if we want to excel. Talking about that, let's move on to one that we know really affects us a lot. Because, well, that of pride, we know we've had a lot of people who have fallen, had issues because of pride. Then what about emotions? We also have our emotions. And emotions include anger, bitterness, hyperactivity, and then, of course, timidity. Now, I wouldn't know if we could have some interjections here. These emotions, anger, bitterness, hyperactivity, timidity, these are traps, these are things we need to avoid. They're all part of our being. And how do they impact on us as presenters? As I said, please, I want to be a facilitator. So I'd like interjections from time to time. We're talking about these traps, and we're talking about our emotions now and how they could affect us as presenters. Could somebody please say something? Fantastic BBC, I should make it as interactive as possible. It shouldn't just be a solo ride. Hello?
Good morning, boss.
Yes, good morning. Yes, okay, good.
Let's talk anger. Some of us have anger issues, and the listener is not the cause of your anger. So you go on the air and transfer your aggressions to the listener, and then the listener switches off because there are many stations competing for interest. And so you lose one listener. And then the one listener goes on Twitter and tweets, I don't know what's wrong with this presenter of XYZ station. Why are you always sounding so angry on the air? And then under the tweet, you'll find the tweet start going viral. Yeah, so the other day I listened to this presenter and I don't just know what's happening. So one of the things I learned at FRCN presentation school, the late JUANITA, God bless her soul, was whatever your challenges are, when you step into the gate of your office, leave them outside and move on. If you decide to pick them when you're leaving the studio, that's your business. But the listener is not the cause of your problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I actually have a personal experience that I'd like to share. Many years ago, we're still in Lagos then. I lost my aunt and we were preparing to go for her funeral. And everything had been settled, the flights had been booked and everything. And I told my then head of presentation, and he said, no, he can't release me. And it was time for our flagship news broadcast then, 60 Minutes. And I was really upset. And I said, Lord, how am I going to handle this? Well, I went into the studio. I was to take the 10-minute news stretch, and then I'll come out again and then take another 10 minutes later on in the program. So I went in and I had my script. I had already prepared anyway. I had done my proofreading. So got in, I took the news all right. Like Glory said, I dropped whatever it was at the door, not even at the gate. This one was just at the door where I went into the studio. And I finished the news. And as soon as I came out of the inner cubicle to where the SM was, I burst into tears, uncontrollable tears. And everyone said, what happened? You just finished reading the news. What went wrong? And I went out and I was bawling like a baby. He said, I can't go for this thing. And I don't know how our DN then of blessed memory, Muhammad Okorejo, got to hear. And he came down, Juanita, that was what I was called. When he said, what's wrong? And I told him everything. He said, is that the issue? Don't worry, you go. Just finish your 60 minutes. And I went back and did the rest. But, as at that point, I myself didn't know why I burst into tears when I got out. I didn't expect I was going to do that, but it was there. But for that moment that I had to read 10 minutes of news, everything was behind me at the door. But once I got to the door, well, like Glory said, it's your business. I picked it up at the door and burst out like a baby. So we have to keep our emotions at bay. I've heard of people who have lost a mom, lost a dad or somebody, and they still came in, finished their broadcast for that day before perhaps telling them this is what happened to me, and then they dashed off. So these things must
Can I
be
share something?
Yes, please.
Sorry,
Please
can I
ask.
say something?
Please
My name
do.
is Moraya.
Oh, nice to meet you. Please go ahead.
Nice to meet you. So something happened last week, and I can understand the idea of maybe holding your emotions from something that happened at home. But from something happened to me last week was I was right on set and I was angry. Now, what caused my anger was the fact that almost every other day, once the lines are open, the phone lines are open, I communicate to the producer or the director in the PCL should know to increase the volume so I can hear the caller in the studio. Almost every single day, I'm constantly telling him to increase. Once the camera goes off me, I put my thumbs up, reminding him to increase the volume. So that day, I couldn't hear the caller, and it was so important for me to hear what they were saying because he was a resource person giving us information. And I can't ask follow-up questions if I cannot hear him. So I was visibly angry. I was almost turning red. To make it worse, even the caller, the lines were really going bad. We were having technical issues. So I really tried to hold my emotions. So of course, I got messages almost immediately saying, "Why is Maya looking angry? What's going on?" I'm like, so I was trying to hold my anger, but it's kind of frustrating when you're constantly having to communicate on a live show, especially because recorded is a bit easier. But once it's live, you get that emotion where you feel like, why do I have to keep saying this every single time? So I get it when you have an emotion happening from house or anger happening from the home. But on set, sometimes it just so happens, and of course I regretted showing that on my face, but sometimes those things happen. How would I handle that going forward?
Well, how would you handle that going forward?
Bossat, could I just say something before she
yes,
goes
please
forward?
come in. Okay.
Hi, Mariah. It's so good to know you on this line.
Hello, Ma.
So, have you seen a beautiful murderer before? You know those
Yes.
stimulated movies where you see a murderer that is smiling at you? He's
Yes.
about to kill you. Ignite your smile. Ignite your smile. And be kind enough to tell your sound engineer, your studio manager, or whatever you call him, I can't seem to hear my respondents. Could we have the volume a little bit higher? And smile. And then when you're off the set, strangle him. Bye-bye.
And thanks for that. And another way also is to apologize on air and say, well, sorry, it's like we're actually having a problem here with the technical aspects of what we're doing. Please bear with us. By the way, as you're saying that, you're helping to douse your own feeling because you're already pushing it onto the guys there. I'm hoping that they're listening so they know that I have pushed the blame to you. So you're letting your listener look, see, well, we're doing our best, but there's a technical problem here. We really wish we could help you, but we can get it better, but please bear with us. That is, by speaking out, you're already cooling yourself down, and hopefully they will get the message. If it's possible, you could ask for a break. Can we take a break here? Or whatever it is, or, you know, at times, because I watch your program a lot, you have to pause that resource person, do your normal JoJo, and then get back as soon as it's possibly done. But as much as possible, as we've said, you know, you yourself, you got the responses. We just have to work on these traps. They are traps. Yes, we all have anger. Everybody can get angry. There's no one who doesn't get angry, but we just have to see how we can get a grip of it when it happens. And then I thought Glory was going to talk about hyperactivity because she's a hyperactive one. Those who know her know she is. But somehow she gets by when she's on air. Otherwise, it would be a one-woman riot squad. Then we have biases. Then there's also timidity. Of course, as a presenter, you have no business being a presenter if you're going to be timid. So you have to work on that, definitely. Then we have habits, alcoholism, late coming. These are some of the habits which we also have to work on. These are traps. These are things that could mess one up as a presenter. And I'm sure we've had some of these in our midst, some of our colleagues who are habitual latecomers, some who are into alcoholism and stuff like that. I remember in 1980, one of our presenters, one of the news leaders on the network then, unfortunately, he was soaked and he came in to read the network news. an elderly presenter then, newscaster then, and that was in Radio Nigeria. I've forgotten his name, he's late now. And he went on air and was talking about the head of state, and he said, Archbishop somebody. And somebody had to actually come in and sit on his laps to conclude the network news. That was very long ago. And thereafter, he was taken away, and I think he was even the head of presentation, but unfortunately, he had alcoholism as a challenge, and they just had to finally take him off air after that serious embarrassment. So these are things that we need to look out for. Now, let's go quickly to the professional flaws. We've talked about the personality traits.
Can I quickly jump in here?
Oh, yes, please do.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Before we move on to another aspect of it, thank you very much, JUANITA. This is quite stimulating to listen to you. So I'd like to remind us what happened during September 11, about 11 years ago, I think, when there was a national tragedy in the US, and there were newsreaders on CNN who were crying, as they read the news. I'd like us to look at that as an example. How do you analyze what happened as a newsreader, as a presenter?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kamian John, and I think the best way to go about this is just to remember that we're professionals. And as professionals, we are meant to hold our profession to the highest standard. And as a presenter, you must also understand that you wield some kind of power that has to do with the mental and emotional state of both your viewers and listeners. And you pass that power, or you control those emotions based on the expressions you carry, especially if you're on TV, and also through the sound of your voice. Your voice tells a lot. The tone, the choice of words, just your voice shaking alone can tell very intelligent listeners your state of mind. So I think the best way to deal with this, whether it's anger, whether it's some emotional setback, is just to basically remember that you are at that point in time reaching out to millions of people you don't know. And there is at that point in time, they need you. They're looking up to you. They're banking on you for that information that would help them at that point in time to be able to deal with their day, probably even overcome their own challenge at that point in time. I'm talking from personal experience. I remember on a particular Sunday where I was on air, and I was talking about people trying to overcome both personal and social cultural challenges. And I got a call from a young lady who said, I just saved her life. And I said, okay, how did that happen? And she said, I was at the verge of taking my life, but I listened to you keenly, and you kept emphasizing that, it's not over, that I still had hope. It sounded as if you knew what I was going through and who I was. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm not going to take my life anymore. That till tomorrow, that is one major turning point in my career. I've never, ever taken it for granted. The knowing that people listen, hoping that you would say something that would just change their situation. So it's once you understand that it's not about you, but it's more about the people listening, the people watching, then I think that alone helps you to understand the larger part of the responsibility of being not just a presenter, not just being an ambassador of your organization, but the fact that you have a privilege of wielding some power that is beyond human comprehension. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, and but going back to the aspect of those who were crying on air during the September 11 thing. Yes, that was just a natural reaction. But even when we are overtaken by our emotions, we need to get a grip of them as soon as possible and get back to business. Depending on what the issue is that comes up, there could be some breaking news that could take anyone aback. As much as possible, we're supposed to keep a straight face. But even if you do get overcome by emotions for a second or so, let everyone know that you're human and then come back and remain in control of things. That is what is expected of you. We all know that we're human. And I would also want to say that I remember one of my colleagues, her name is Hannatu, I can mention her. She had this challenge of her socket, her shoulder socket that normally comes out. And there was this day she was on air, she was reading the news, and her socket came out of the shoulder. And she went through the whole news. She just held it, went through, nobody knew what happened until she was done. And then she came off, and ours was radio anyway, so she was able to get by. And then she came out, and then she started weeping. And we all saw she was holding on to this thing, and she had to be helped to manipulate it back. So these are things that happen. And just as we've been told, our listener is king. We just have to put them into consideration and put every other thing aside. So that's it for the personality traits, temperaments, emotions, and all of that. Now let's go to the professional flaws, talking about the traps to present. And then the very first one, which I'm sure we all know, which is the most important one, is our intrusive grammatical glitches here and there. We have so many of them these days. This mixing up of tenses, had and has, and all of that. And it's becoming so embarrassing. And there's one thing I didn't say that we need to remember that we are as presenters. We are also teachers, we're educationists. People learn from us. People want to get the correct thing from us. They want to be able to, we used to, in those days, we would tune to the BBC as our standard. And I'm sure we have some channels that TV and radio channels that we still tune to today because we want to get the correct thing. So you can imagine us being the ones that are now teaching the wrong thing because we just allow our grammar to get mixed up. That's something that I really wish we could listen back to ourselves at times after our productions. I hate listening back to myself after my production, actually. But at times we need to, just to be sure that we can identify some of those glitches and work on them. There's so many hads and hases, and then there's this word that I noticed that is on some stations, route. Well, that's not grammatical, actually, it's pronunciation. That's taking me to the next one, poor pronunciation. And I hear people now talking about that's the route to take. And I said, where did that come from? Who started routing the whole matter? It's always been route. And all of a sudden, ROUTE becomes route. That's American. And I believe mostly here in Nigeria, we've adopted the English style, or I stand to be corrected here. What do we say about, I'm sure some of us have heard route. What do we say about that? We're talking about, as presenters, we're also teaching. We're also educationists, on-air educationists. Could somebody please say something about that?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
My name is Rhoda Francis, and I'm joining from Imo State, Owerri to be precise. And thank you. So this part really caught my attention because I always visit Lagos and I get to hear this a lot, route. And I tell myself, okay, Rhoda, you need to go back to the dictionary, just go and be sure. And then I go, I check, and it's not route. I still come back and I'm hearing it from another station. So yes, it's a good thing that you have raised this. I'd like to believe there's some people who are listening in from Lagos who are joining or who have joined from Lagos so that they get to also understand that this is not route. It is route because we're speaking British English on air because it's Nigeria. So yes, thank you so much for pointing this out, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you. And actually, the first time I heard the phrase, the word, it actually started my DIT, then our director IT, he came from the US, and he was talking about a router. So there, for your internet connectivity and all that. And I thought it was, honestly, I thought it was a technical IT term. But when I now heard people saying that's the route to take, and I said, now I know where router came from, which means even technically what we're talking about, even in IT, is supposed to be a router, not a router. But because, US is the hub of the IT technology and all of that, so they routed it and everybody took on to that. And then later we started talking about the route again and stuff like that. So we need to, of course, well, if your station says that can go, maybe that's their style. That's why, again, we have to understand the house style and stick to the house style. I remember one of my colleagues just came back. She was in another station. She was with us. She went out and she came back. She said, oh, now I'm back. I have to get used to saying 0080. Because where I was, it was 080. House style, I have nothing against it, but know your house style and stick to it. Otherwise, it's going to be poor pronunciation. So ideally, but we must, as presenters, always check on our pronunciation. There's never an end to learning. I'm sure we all know that. New terms are coming out every day, and we must be on top of our game. I remember many years back, I'm sure some of us will remember the political en passé. How many of us can remember that? That was said by somebody then, somebody highly placed.
Yeah.
Aha. Good. It was political en passé. And that sent all of us quickly back to our DJ. Is it en passé? And then we saw that it was en passe. But this, he was one that brought the word to the live. He brought it up, but he pronounced it en passé. And we just, but thankfully, no presenter would call it an en passé now. We all know the correct thing. So we must be there. Then we also have to, we're talking about professional flaws. We've talked about grammar, pronunciation, our sources. We must be sure that when we're quoting sources that they have been verified, especially, and that's why I really appreciate what's going on BGF. We emphasize the need to, check and cross-check again before we forward posts and all of that, especially social media posts. How credible are they? Where have you heard it on the traditional media? If not, please hold on a while. Don't go with that and use that with some of your chit chats on your station. You might just get into trouble. So we definitely, it's not about wanting to be the first to break the news or the one that has, it's not about having the hottest news in town. You might just get the hottest query thereafter. So we have to make sure that we eliminate all those ones as much as possible.
All right. So, sorry, hi Juanita, can I just add to that a little bit? All right. Yeah. My name is Mike Okwoche.
Yep.
And this British and American pronunciation has really cropped into a lot in broadcasting, especially in Lagos. Now, the point is, we've had a situation where a lot of young people are getting into set or getting on set without foundational training. A lot of them have never been there. And we have a lot of young CEOs now who have made money somehow, and then they're setting up TV stations, they're setting up radio stations. And then the more foreign you seem to sound, the better they feel that you have what it takes to attract the viewer out there, especially when some of these people who go to America and go to London and they come back, they sound in a certain way with all the slangs and all of that. So in the eyes of since they are not broadcasters, when you sound in that way, they feel that they're better. I think this is what we need. So it behoves on us that as broadcasters, we need to be able to, every opportunity, like I think I think whether it was John Kamyang that commented earlier on, saying that we don't even have to remain within the cocoon of the brand we represent. If I work for TVC, for instance, and I see something on channels, or I see something on Silverbird, or I see something on AIT, as a broadcaster, as a gatekeeper of the industry, I should be able to call attention to say, this shouldn't be like this and this shouldn't be like that. It is not a rivalry between one brand or the other. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I hope everyone else can.
Okay, right. So it's the same thing. I've had cause to call some access that I have, some network I have had on some radio stations to say, your presenter shouldn't have done this. The other day on one of the radio stations, I wouldn't mention the name, a DJ was playing, DJ was having fun on one of the afternoon belts. And he was playing songs that are NTBB, songs that shouldn't be on it, songs that are outrightly banned by NBC. So I had to call into I thank God I had the number of the head of presentation, and I called. I said, your DJ is on air with songs that shouldn't have anything to do on air. Songs with all sorts of swear words and all of that. It's not acceptable. Of course, I don't work for the brand, but the point there is because we are gatekeepers of the industry, we should do that every single time. Opportunity you have it, please, let's not hesitate to make comments, make correction, guide anywhere we have to guide, because this issue of route and route, in fact, there are so many words like that, like schedule and schedule. There's so many. We can list, you have a long list of those kind of words sometimes that infiltrate the way young people present these days, because a lot of Hollywood they've watched, a lot of traveling some people have done, they feel that sounding more, because America has a lot of influence in almost all our lives, so the more American you sound, they feel that the better, or the more civilized, or the more higher up there you belong. But in broadcasting, it's not like that. It has to be right. It's not about the way you sound. It is sounding right. That's what the thing is. That's what you can be a Yoruba presenter and sound the way that the standard is. It is not until you sound foreign, all of these accents that are not acceptable, it is not until you sound like that you are the presenter. So I think it's just something I needed to add in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You couldn't have put it better. And you just reminded me, there's this other one, roster and rota. We hear in places, and I said, have you put up the rota for the week? And I said, my God, where did this one come from again? Rota. And I noticed again, because of course I had to Google it, and that's the American way of roster. So my roster for the week is now a rota. So we need to be careful. And that's why...
Hello, ma'am.
Yes,
please, before we go forward, please could everybody mute their microphones? Please, when you're saying, because I can hear children crying, I can hear conversations on the sideline. It's an interference that we don't need right now. This is kind of like school for us, Saturday school for us. Please mute your microphone. When you want to talk, unmute yourself. Thereafter, mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Glory.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes,
sorry, ma'am.
yes, please. Okay, go
my
ahead.
name is Wankego Ohebulam.
Okay.
And I'm a presenter from Imo State.
You're welcome.
Okay. In furtherance to what the last speaker said, I've had situations where I noticed or I heard certain words being mispronounced on air on some stations in the state. And when I tried reaching out to them, through some of them, I do that individually. Some others I have to go through probably the head of station or head of presentation and what have you. It turns out that at a point, they started having this perception of me as an ITK, that is I2, and that doesn't even help matters, because when you are trying to correct the person and or trying to make the station understand that what they are doing is not the right thing, they have this, they rebuff you at some or somehow. You could get that, even though it's non-verbal, you could get that, I don't want it. This is what we want. So how do you still accommodate such from your colleagues as well? And especially when it's coming from younger people, younger presenters in the state, because it doesn't rub off well on the rest of us here in the state. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, if the person is in another station which isn't yours, there's really nothing much you can do. Perhaps get them onto platforms like BGF where they can learn. Remember, we talked about the fact that a presenter part of the thing is pride. One of those traps you need to avoid is pride, unteachability, where you just refuse. You feel that nobody can tell you anything. After all, somebody said I was very good. I have a good voice, and put me and said, go on air. You're going to be one of our lead voices now. And so you are now coming to tell the person isn't doing the right thing. Who the hell do you think you are? That's what is in the person's mind. So for as long as it's not, but if it's in your station, then that you can do something about it. And that's why each station should have their standards. Each station should have its standard. We should have standards. We should have our house, the house format that we stick to. Yes, house style that we stick to. And for instance, I gave the example of the 080 and the 080. Some stations stick to 080, other stations stick to 080. That's the house style, and we stick to that. But outside of that, there are other things that you need to understand. And as a presenter, you must go out of your way to understand the house style, so that when you get in there, you're not just going there to do what you borrowed. If you're coming, for instance, coming from an FM background to a news channel, for instance, you know you have to drop a whole lot of nuances. You have to drop a whole lot because you're not going to be doing it that way anymore. FM news is different. I started with Radio Nigeria 2, AM/FM stereo then. That was one of the places I had my early foray into broadcasting. And I know how we used to read the news. There was just chitty-chatty, easy go. But by the time I got to Voice of Nigeria after school, it was more serious-minded. So it's a totally different package. And we have to be able to adjust. We have to fit in. We have to stick to the house style. So, and one thing I'd like to point out is that as a presenter, we've heard this phrase before, that ignorance is no excuse under the law. And for a presenter, you can't feign ignorance of anything. Talking about airing music that is NTBB, you could get the whole station into trouble. And at that point, the station may not sit up for you. You're going to go for it. And the station is not going to be happy about it. So we must know all these things. Let me quickly move on to, we're talking about professional flaws. There's another flaw that we need to, I talked about grammar. There's some overused or wrongly used phrases and cliches. Now, I want to read out some of them. Overused or wrongly used phrases and cliches, and they become commonplace expressions here, especially in Nigeria. For instance, 3 a.m. in the morning. 3 a.m. in the morning, before uncle, absolutely essential. In actual fact, at this point in time, depreciate in value, eliminate completely, combine together or join together, end result or final result or outcome or final outcome. To be honest with you, who are you being honest with? Then basically, the matter of fact, you know what I mean? And there's another one, with due respect, which I myself, I use that for some time, from time to time. Now, these are overused statements. And like I heard somebody saying, some of them are tautological. So we need to be conscious of these things, and we mustn't fall into these traps. We have to understand, that's why we have to read wide, we have to update ourselves so that we shouldn't be the ones teaching people that the Naira is depreciating in value. It is depreciating, full and final stop. In value also, it already tells us that it is depreciating. So there's no need to add that. And the other things, we have to eliminate this completely. You eliminate and eliminate. So we have to understand these things. Especially when we're handling interviews or talk shows, and we just become so verbose, and we kind of forget some of these things and we go ahead with them. Then, of course, we must avoid omissions, facts and figures. We must always get them right. We must avoid misinformation, and we must avoid lack of preparation. I had an embarrassment. The very first edition of In the News that I did many, many years ago, it was a South African High Commissioner to Nigeria then. And honestly, it was the first time I didn't know a single thing. And they said, hey, we need somebody, come and handle this 30 minutes. I think it was 1 hour then. I hated myself at the end of the day because I didn't have enough time to prepare. And I actually sounded like an illiterate at the end of the day. And he kind of nicely pointed it out that if only you knew a little thing better about us, you probably wouldn't have asked that question. And it was like, fine. So we must prepare. Lack of currency, we must be up to date as presenters. I mean, there's just no excuse for that. Long-winded questions, that's another trap. And we hear a lot of that today. Our presenters, our interviewers, we ask long-winded, double-barreled questions. We were taught KISS. I'm sure we all remember that. No presenter shouldn't every presenter should know what KISS stands for. Keep it short and simple. I don't know if there's a better acronym than that, but we have that. Keep it short and simple. But today, and I see that happening on some stations. And the sad thing, sorry, let me just land here. Sorry, let me just land here. The sad thing, I've watched some of our stations, when you go with that long-winded question and the person doesn't get you the first time, maybe, especially if it's a network thing, maybe the person is online and stuff. By the time you're taking it the next time, you now come to what you should have done in the first place. You now compress your question. So why didn't you just compress it the first time? Please, yes, somebody wanted to say something. Yeah, somebody was trying to come in. Hello?
Oh yeah, I wanted to add to what Michael Koche said about accents, and this reminds me the session I had when I released my books on pronunciation, the accent debate. The question is, does wielding an accent make you a good presenter or broadcaster? No. So it's about recruitment. I think it's the recruiters for the industry who started this trend. So we need to get back to HR personnel, that the fact that you've actually brought about a problem in the industry, because accents don't determine your professionalism. Right, that's number one. Number two, we're second language speakers of the English language. The moment, and anybody can acquire an accent, but the moment you begin to speak in a certain way, to want to ape the first language speakers, if you weren't born there and you didn't acquire it there because you schooled there, at some point it will become a distraction to the second language speakers who are listening to you, because the idea is for you to make meaning. The idea is for you to tell stories. Whatever it is we do on radio, on TV, we're telling stories, we're storytellers. But when your voice becomes a distraction, then it defeats the purpose. That's another one. Then secondly, we have a lot of impressionable people and undiscerning people listening and watching us all. It's our duty to continually let people know that your accent does not determine how good a broadcaster you are. And then again, when I'm trying to see what I wrote, when you see or write or see me write about the Nigerian broadcast industry, it's because I have seen something pervasive. I've seen that there's a prevalence of a particular kind of habit. For instance, when a presenter plays music and it's haphazard on air, I know that I listen to these on a lot of stations, and I just say to myself, hey, where are we headed to, we should not be tired of calling heads of presentations or, station owners about the performance of the presenters. I do that a lot. And it's the way that you say it that will make someone probably think that you're an ITK. But we shouldn't get tired, because it's our industry. The way we make our bed is the way we lie on it. I just wanted to say that, but I think we should emphasize more on the accent debates and de-emphasize the fact that the accent makes the broadcaster. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And talking about that, as heads of presentation, we also have a role to play, even if the recruiters bringing the wrong people. I've had quite a few of them over the years. And I remember particularly one who came in, and when we started our clinics, I would tell her, excuse me, we're not going for an Igbo town hall meeting. I'm just being specific here. You're sounding like you're going for an Igbo town hall meeting, and it's not going to work on Voice of Nigeria. And I can tell you that today, she's a trainer in Voice of Nigeria because I drilled her, I dealt with her. So at the end of the day, remember we talked about our personality traits as presenters, traps we need to avoid. If you're teachable, if you're ready to be corrected, you can work on even some of the nuances, whether it's the local affectations or the imported ones. If you're ready to listen, if you're ready to be corrected, you can handle them, you can get rid of them. They can be chipped off here and there. But it's when one decides that, no, this is the way I am and this is the way I want to stay, that's where the problem lies. And many times you just, like we talked about, the broadcast, you become a source of broadcast noise on your organization's station because you're not doing the right thing and you don't want to know the right thing. You don't want to be corrected. So as heads of presentation too, we shouldn't, like you said, we shouldn't relent. We have a lot of training to do. We have, we should have our clinics. We should call people behind the scenes. We should drill them and get them, put them into shape, chisel them into shape to be what they, as long as the organization has a standard, we must stick to those standards. So yes, there's really no excuse, especially for those under our purview, we can handle them. So I was almost rounding up here at this point about the questions, the long-winded questions, that's for the professional floors now. The double-barreled questions, these are things that we need to also try and look at and see how we can adjust. We don't have to tell the whole history and geography of the particular issue just because we want to ask a question. Yes, it's not, when you're an interviewer, you're not trying to prove, yes, you do your research, but then you're not going to throw all that research into the face of your interviewee just to let him know that, look, I have read, I know everything, and so you throw, and then you ask a question and the person is lost. And then God help you if there's also bad connectivity, the person is lost. So let's get back to what we were taught, keeping it short and simple, and then we get the best results from up. So now let's go to how we can avoid or escape these traps. We've talked about, a lot of training, the need for training, foundation. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Yes, there's no doubt that some people are forced on us. There have been one or two that were forced and we eventually rejected them. There was a lady, she unfortunately, she had an age challenge. And I said, sorry, we can't have you on phone. And she was sent to presentation. I said, no, you can't. You can't come and be saying Av and Aus. And we tried getting her to change. She couldn't. And we just had to say, you have to shift. You have to move the unit. You can't stay in presentation. So there are times when we have to put our feet down and tell management that, well, this person was brought into presentation, but we can't keep her there, or we can't keep him there because it's going, it's that, there's some presentations that are unforgivable. And this is one of them. So training and more training, in-house, out-house, external, whatever it is, bring in the professionals. Let's have more and more training. And if you have the rapport, good rapport with your CEO or the GM or whoever is at the top, he will get to understand the importance of training. So we have to do that. Otherwise, and again, the lady I talked about that I said was able to overcome her town hall accent. Apart from some of the in-house trainings we did, she personally went online and did a lot of training. And that's where I remember talking about one of the personality traits is laziness. Laziness. Some of us are lazy. We've left school like donkey years ago and we just aren't ready to do anything again. I mean, we should be proud of having a colleague like Funke Treasure here who's done a book on broadcasting. If she weren't reading and doing all that, she wouldn't have been able to bring out that book. And we want to tap from the knowledge that she has there. Who says we can't also do the second edition or something else on that, or something along our own lines? But there's a lot of laziness. Yes, please. Somebody want to say something?
Yeah, this is Chukwujo Kodyubaja.
Okay, you. Okay, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. You're deepening me more and more, and I appreciate it to the fullest. You know, this question of thanks for the way you treated route and route is nonsensical to even engage it at all. It is American technicians who are routing it through the ceiling to the other end of the hall so that they can have a particular effect. We explained it the last time on Saturday when I had the privilege of talking to us. Having said that, there's this house style thing we mentioned. 080 may be the internationally accepted thing. What I tell people is, why would you want to change what you do not own? If you do zero is zero because you're thinking in digits. English is not rationality, not up to half of the time. But the British woman who taught us phonetics said English is silly. It makes its own laws without recourse to reasoning. You know, if Americans say 080, if British people say 8080, why would you want to enculture 080 in Nigeria and sound strange to your Australian or Canadian counterpart when you discuss with them? So the choice is theirs. Okay, they can have their house style, but I always warn you what is the international implication of deviation from English everyone understands. And that takes me to what should inform. We talked about native speaker nuances. The other time I mentioned how a BBC reporter tried to ridicule the way I spoke English. We're on this Shell overfly in the Niger Delta. And then Ladia Keredolu Army was saying, why do you want to always sound British? I don't sound British. I can't sound British. It would be ridiculous, if not ludicrous, for me to start to even try to sound British, because I didn't learn English on British soil. The native speaker nuances can never become mine. The problem people have is that they are confused about communication itself. Maybe I'm saying all these things, you know, buoyed by my linguistics background. Functionality determines what you do with the language. Hearing, understanding. Why would you want to switch on an accent that reduces your audience? When you let them know this from a functional point of view, what did we say the other time? If you say, I am a Nigerian person, therefore anus, you become anus. When you say that, when you drop that, and everybody now focuses on anus, they are no longer following your pronunciation. Your message. You have distracted them. So what you want to do when you use English is to try as much as possible not to do things that will remove attention from the quest, from what you set out to do. That should drive everything. After that, people can begin to tell themselves their OAPs and OSNs and all that, and Chukwudi will tell them. If you're OAP, the man you invited to the studio for an interview, is he not on the air as well? He too is an on-air personality. Why would Nigerians suddenly stop being radio presenters? We are unfortunately imbued with a seemingly incurable inferiority complex. And inferiority complex does not drive anything. You know, let me not lengthen it too much so that my other colleagues can speak up. But please, madam, I really appreciate what you've said today. I'm talking about route. If you route it, what of when you want to tell us that the enemy was completely defeated? Wow, you bring in an ambiguity that is easily preventable. Broadcasters need to think. The British person I said, I picked up a little quarrel with the reporter. When Ladi said, Chukwudi, you'd like to speak like a British person, which I deny easily because I don't speak like a British person. Yes, I have the privilege of being taught English by a British woman, but I can never speak English like a British person. I only owe English intelligibility. You know what I asked the reporter, the BBC reporter? I told him, when you speak English the way you do, with all the raciness, you're so past. Not many people understand you. When you speak English to me, I don't understand everything you say. But when I speak English to you, you understand everything I say. Who is the better user of English? He fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you so other people can talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Somebody, I just went to the chat box now and someone said, I can't stop laughing at this anus. So, I mean, it sounds ridiculous as it is. And that's enough for us to know that it's just out of this world. Tony, I think you wanted to say something too before I continue.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
Let me first thank you very much for what you have done so far. My boss, Chukudi has said much of what I wanted to say. The point about accent that Funke raised, we need to revisit that because we need to draw a line. I need you to talk about drawing a line between aping somebody and speaking English the standard way. But of course, Mr. Obaja just broke it down. I mean, when you speak English the standard way, it is different from when you are aping Americans because you've traveled to the US and you spent 2 weeks. So let me stop there. You may just say a little bit more about that.
Yes, sincerely, it boils down to one thing: originality. Be yourself. Be yourself. We've already said that when you come into the profession, you must have the flair. There's something we've seen there. You have the good voice, you have the good diction. Of course, you're not coming in perfect. You go for basic training, you go for intermediate training and all of that. And certain things are dealt with, but be yourself. No one says, listen to BBC and sound like them. No one says, listen to any station and sound like them. If you don't have it, you don't have it, and we will weed you out. But what you have, give us the way it is, and let us accept you for who you are. And we have a whole lot of, presenters who are just themselves and are appreciated that way. And I think that's just it. We should just be, we should concentrate on being original. The aping is being fake. The aping is being a copycat. And we don't want copycat presenters. Yes, I remember when I joined Voice of Nigeria, there was another lady, were two who joined then in 1990. And at a point, someone said they couldn't tell the difference between the two of us. Who is copying who? And well, I said, well, this is just me. I wouldn't know, but please, I try and carve your own image for yourself and let me stick to who I am. This is who I am. And so that's the way it is. You're not going in there to be like any other person. You really can't anyway. And it will show eventually. That's one thing people don't know. It will show. If you're trying to mimic, well, not mimic, you're trying to copy, you're trying to ape, you're trying to be, it will show, because along the line, you won't get it, because that person is that way, because it comes from within. It's natural. That's the way the person has always been, just with some fine tuning here and there, the brush ups in presentation. And, we talk about when you're doing your presentation, your weak forms, your package, all of that. Fine. Otherwise, there's nothing to copy. Once you have a good grip of your word grouping in your presentation, you can do your word grouping right, and you can use your weak forms properly. You don't need to copy anyone. Those are the things that you need. And then you have your correct pronunciation. You have your, as we say, the DJ is our own Bible. You have it there, and you cross-check. And you have these things online now, so you don't even have to carry a DJ up and down. You just Google it and you get some of these pronunciations. Once you get that, you don't need to copy anyone. And then a lot of practice. Practice, more practice and practice. That's just it. I remember in those days when we first joined, we're not allowed to speak other languages. Don't speak Yoruba, don't speak Igbo, so that it doesn't affect your English. Fine. Until you're good. So that, especially when we're just coming up, during presentation meetings, no vernacular, no pidgin English and all of that. So while we're having our presentation meetings, it's also like a clinic.
Someone is asking for the correct pronunciation of Rebel, but she didn't indicate whether it would be in the noun form or a verb, because it's usage that would determine that. I am in the chat box, ma'am. Permit me be your scribe for now.
Please
do. Someone is saying, okay, that is Oluwatoba Victoria. Good morning, everyone. Can I get the correct pronunciation of Rebel? Please, could you check whether it is a noun or a verb? I think that's the only question I see inbox. Back to you, ma'am.
Okay, okay, yes, but I thought, Glory, could you answer that yourself? Glory?
Yes, Bassett.
The rebel and the rebel, which one is which?
Verb,
rebel. Yeah.
Noun, rebel, depending on the use.
So I guess that answers that for that person. I was told Emeka Odipo raised his hand. Okay, Emeka, sorry, sir. Doctor.
Chukwudi has really taken it off my mouth. but I want to say something. I just want to advocate here. What do we do with standard? If you leave it to the stations, what are stations that don't even know what the standards are? I remember when, I think it was Ilemi that began this war about 080 or 0803. And the first thing wanted to emphasize that is 080 or whatever. But somehow it didn't click. Can't we advocate for an organization? I don't think that that's the job of MBC or even Bond to enforce standards in all these institutions as part of the registration. Before you ask them, give them license to operate, then they have to imbibe the standards. If you say house style, if your house style is a route, for instance, or route or whatever, then it's not, you have not followed the process. But if you say that it's route and not route, and that each station must obey the standard, then you are making progress. If you leave it to the stations to determine what is standard, then it becomes a problem. There are stations, there are proprietors of radio stations. I know some of them who like the accent, American accent, so much that everybody, even reading the news, they say, use the American accent, and they think they have arrived. If you go there, I went there to do some lectures, so to say. And after I left, in fact, some of them were telling me that this British thing has been jettisoned. That what is reigning, what is the American system. So we have a problem here. If we don't emphasize standard and make it a precondition for registration of licensing, then we will, because most stations are still coming up. And if they are coming up and the man who is the owner is from Ibariam, that's my village, who because he stumbled into money and set up a station, he doesn't know what standard is. So whatever you say on air is the standard.
Yes, actually that was, thank you so much for this, Dr. Meka. That was actually going to be one of my final posers, because I know that there have been attempts to set up, there was this, was it Broadcasting Association of Nigeria or something that was set up. I wouldn't know how they want to do it. We see many other professions these days have a kind of registration body, in charge of registration, where you have to go through some kind of training and then you're regarded as this and then you can be employed. But somehow presentation, broadcasting generally is an all-comers, has been an all-comers thing. I'm not against someone. I have a colleague who read zoology and she's a very good producer today. I have nothing against that. But for her to have become a very good producer, she put aside her zoology and went to training school and learned the ABC of production. And I think we should also apply that to presentation. So because you raised that now, that's why I'm saying it. And I wouldn't know if Tony and some of you are the helm of affairs in BGF could, I don't know how we could get to that point where just as we have ICANN, we have for the engineers, we have NG, all of that, where there has to be some kind of regulation as far as broadcasting is concerned, especially presentation. That's the only way we can enforce standards. It might take long, but maybe if we begin to make some noise, that is not an all-comers thing, especially for on-air, for presenters. It shouldn't just be anything goes. It shouldn't just be anyone can fit in there. Like I said, they've had their recruitments in our office and they just bring a whole lot of people and dump them in presentation. And we have to weed them out because they're just not it. But if we have that regulation right from the start, they won't even bring them near the unit because they know they don't have it. So that's food for thought.
We have a few hands up.
So more hands raised up. Yes, Shola Jayasimi is raised up.
And then Pat Inwang, and then Bella. Those people who have not said anything yet. All right, boss.
I've seen Shola first, so let's take Shola first.
Okay, thank you very much for the enlightenment. With regards to the last comment you made, with due courtesy, the issue about professionalism in broadcasting has kicked off again, and I'm surprised. It seems many do not know. The Society of Nigerian Broadcasters, the plan had been revived since late last year. I'm privileged to represent Dark Communications on the organizing committee for the first induction. And that induction is tentatively fixed to happen at the end of this month. So basically, maybe at this high-level platform where we have very senior experienced persons, they could reconnect with the CEOs of the various organizations, broadcast outfits, either private or public, to ask the DGs, the MDs, oh, this is what we are hearing, so that we can move in that direction and galvanize the SNB to come alive. The induction is set for towards the end of this month. But in all honesty, the membership drive has not been encouraging as we want it to be. The chair of the committee says he has tried to even meet up personally. So this platform gives an opportunity to ask more questions so that the issue of presentation and the presentation core in various establishments can be trashed out, though the SNB is open for everybody in broadcasting. Well, in my own view, apart from admin persons. Thank you. Just additional information.
Yes, thank you very much. If I say I haven't heard of that, I'll be lying. But as you said, the push, the drive isn't there. I heard of it in passing. I think a form was brought around, but I think that's just as far as it went. So I think we need some more mobilization for this to really get on board and have the bites that it's supposed to have. Thank you very much. Yes, Pat Iwan, please.
Thank you very much.
You can put down your hand once you're done, Shola, please. Mr. Jaisini.
Thank you very much, Ma. I want to really appreciate you for today and all those who have made comments this morning. Though it is not very easy to do this broadcasting thing without falling into one mistakes or the other. Like this morning, while going on, I had round up instead of round off. I don't know whether I'm right. And also, it would be wise, Ma, so when we pick one thing, we try to see how to resolve it so that we can pick from here and say, this is the standard. For instance, the 0 and the O. I have been trying to see where and how O came into numbers and then why 0 is wrong. So I would have loved that to be treated. It could do us some good. Without wasting time, thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, that has already been done. We have been told, I must be sincere, I'm one person who also stuck to the number, but there was something that Mr. Obaja said this morning, which kind of hits me. International best practices, international standards. If this is the way the owners of the language have chosen that it should be, then who am I to change it? And since that's the route, not route, that we say we're going through. So that was what really hit me this morning, because Gloria and others will know that I just wasn't for the 080. As you said, O is but so it's been thrashed, that's been handled. It's an international standard, and well, it now depends, it's a choice eventually, whether you want to stick to the international or you still want to stick to what you've always understood or what you think is right. Yes, Funke, Anike.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, the person who wrote Rebel and Rebel.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I hear a lot of these on our radio stations and even on our TV stations. It's one of my pet peeves listening to radio. Now, what happened, because we just said one is noun, one is verb. This is what happened. This is a 2-syllable word, right? The stress moves to show the difference between a verb and a noun. The noun is stressed on the first syllable, while the verb is stressed on the second syllable. So you have something like insert and insert. Another one that's very, very popular and
terribly popular for that matter, is record and record. And I hear even on air, veterans and, seasoned and, newbies all saying I recorded it. I don't understand. You record it. It's recorded. It's a record, maybe a record document or a vinyl, the one you play, those albums in the past.
Yes,
so that's record. You record a program. Record and record, a record. Or do you understand that? It's the same thing as discharge and discharge. You can't be reading news and be talking about discharge as discharge. That's something coming out of someone, discharge. It's different from someone to be discharged, to be sent away.
Good, thank you so much.
Contracts, imports, imports, permits and permits.
Permits, yes.
Right? Thank you.
Produce and produce. There are quite a lot of them like that. That's why I said the bottom line is, as a presenter, we must be ready to learn. We must go back. I mean, no one can teach all of these things in one go, in one sitting. But it now behoves you to go back to your DJ from time to time, listen and correct yourself. But if you just feel that I'm just going on air to blab the way anyhow it comes out, then it's wrong. And so there's no end to learning. That's one thing we must emphasize, no end to training. And I want to believe that most organizations, if not all, have their regular clinics where these things are pointed out. I mean, with social media, with our WhatsApp platforms now, we can even correct ourselves on our platforms. This is what you said on air, it's not supposed to be. So it shouldn't happen again. The truth is that if you book the first time, it mustn't be repeated. I remember when I first joined, the first thing I said, my colleagues. Yes, I remember that very well. I said, my colleagues. And immediately I was corrected. Was it George or Magbemi then, or Stella Bassi herself? Somebody said, no, it's not colleagues, it's colleagues. And it stuck. I never made that mistake again. So that's one thing we should be ready to hold on to these corrections that we get and make sure we don't repeat them. That's just important.
Sorry, ma'am.
So,
sorry, ma'am. A Voice of Nigeria icon confessed that when he went to be tested, whether he was fit for broadcasting, he told them, was it Kevin and Nature and the rest of them on the panel, I came to be audited. So
came to be audited. Wow.
I came to be audited rather than auditioned. So it happens. I'm sorry I had to butt in there.
Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, somebody on the chat wants us to get the correct pronunciation of Nigeria. Nigeria. So according to, is it him or her, there's so many pronunciations. I believe there's just one pronunciation for Nigeria. And it's not Nigeria. We shouldn't overdo it. Nigeria. Nigeria. It's as simple as that. Don't overstress anything. Just I know there's something like Nigeria. Leave that area out of it. It's not area. Nigeria. Thank you. Any other hand up? Okay, yes, Dorcas, please. Dorcas. Hello, Dorcas.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yes, you can.
So it's very enlightening to be here, to get to hear from veterans and learn from you also. I have to appreciate you guys for taking all your time to do this. I really do appreciate that. But I think that when we talk about accents, some persons will feel targeted. I don't think it's about the accent. I think it's about the professionalism, rather, of the said presenters that we talk about. I don't think accent is to be blamed for this. We've talked about the accent a whole lot of times here, but we haven't talked about the fact that these people might have learned it, must have acquired one way or the other, but do not know the essence of how to communicate. And that's what they should be taught, how to communicate. So we shouldn't just say accents. I don't think it's the accent. I think it's the people who have these accents. Like you already said, some of us are lazy to not want to learn more or, get to acquire more knowledge. about what presentation, about what communication is. So I don't necessarily think we should just say because we have accents, you shouldn't be a blah, blah, blah. We should bring the HR to try to modify the kind of persons they bring into the communication scene. So I'd like to say that accents are not the issue, but the person, or it's not the issue, is the persons who have these accents are not willing to learn new things and acquire more knowledge on how to communicate with other people. But once again, I would say I appreciate you all for the hard work you're putting in. I get to learn a lot when I'm here. So thank you guys for doing this.
Thank you. And I have a question from Morayo. Is it behoves us or behoves on us? I wouldn't know which one I said, but I think the correct thing is behoves us. Did Morayo get that? Behoves us, it behoves us, not behoves on us. So that's a correction. I think, I know I used the word, I can't remember what I said there. And that's one thing, and that's the way it should be. For instance, if I said behoves on us, then that must have been one of those blabbings that we do from time to time. But once we're corrected, it should stick. That, see, next time, just make sure you don't say behoves on, if I said that. So thank you so much.
Hi, Dorcas, you just used the word land. Since we're in class, I know Mr. Ubaja is already picking his ears and waiting to meet you at the back end.
Learned, so, right?
Yes, learned, okay. Not learned. Land.
Okay.
Have a nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Belema is here.
Can I support you, Juanita?
Yeah. Okay, yes, please. Go ahead. Okay, before I bring on Belema, yes.
You actually said behoves us, which is correct.
Oh, okay.
I think it was one of us, Mike, that said behoves on us. I wanted to call him aside and tell him that he's wrong. It's behoves us. You are right. And let me thank you for this opportunity to say I wasn't expecting less. I know what we're capable of doing.
Sorry,
nice
went
to see you again.
For a minute.
Okay.
Sorry, Anaka, I didn't get it. Went off for a second. I didn't get yes. Say okay. Behoves us, yes. That's what I said.
Kind of signing off for myself.
Okay. Thank you. At least I know I said the right thing. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Belema, can we have you?
Please, ma'am, can I chip in something before my brother leaves?
Oh, okay.
There's something I suggest to people. Why do behoves us, which perhaps should have gone away with Methuselah? Why don't we look for something simpler in the present? That's it. Thank you.
Oh my God. Well, maybe some of us still belong to the Methuselah age. It just came that way. At times, some of these words just come, So I didn't plan to use that word when I was planning for this program, but somewhere along the line, it just came in, and that was the first thing I could think of. But your point is noted. I mean, if I'm scripting for a presentation, I won't put that word, certainly. Most certainly, I won't. But
thanks for being a natural person. May God bless your day. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Wani, please, Wani, let me quickly add this why we are still behoving. If you must use the word, then you must use it correctly. That is the important point. In terms of the meaning, the context, and the pronunciation, because you would hear some people say behoves. It behoves. I thought you would talk about that.
I wouldn't expect, well, you never can tell, Sha. Maybe my brothers could say that, but I wouldn't expect any presenter to say behoves. Behoves. Behove. Well, it still boils down to the fact that we just need to cross-check. There was a time we used to have our DJs beside us. We did a lot of checking, but I don't think people use the DJ anymore. And as I've mentioned, it's on our phones. So we don't have to, there's really no excuse for wrong pronunciations. There's really no excuse. That's the truth.
Please don't even assume that everybody knows what is DJ. When you say DJ, they may be thinking of me when I'm playing music on the platform. So please, that DJ, also let us know what it is.
So that's another. Well, the Daniel Jones pronouncing dictionary. I don't know what they call it now. I've not seen any latest edition for a long time, but it used to be called the Daniel Jones, and we just shortened it to DJ. I don't know what they use now. The latest ones, because everything is, like I said, everything's on our system, on our phones now. So we've lost. But I still refer to DJ because that's the foundation.
That's how you leave my mind in that basket, take it and throw it away. Those don't cost money.
Sorry. Oh, Belema. It seems Belema has gone. Okay, Lowell.
Please, ma'am, can I ask my colleagues to inform me? Okay,
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Lawal Ali from Sokoto, Northern Nigeria, Northwest Nigeria.
Yeah.
Okay. Lafiya Lau. Hope everyone is fine.
Good. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. From my own side, I think what has gone wrong in the media industry, more especially in the presentation, it's accent, being fake has taken part of us. So I think what we should do is to make sure that we work towards doing the right thing, which is being original. If you're original, you can be able to pass the message across your listener so that they can understand what you are trying to pass to them. But if you keep on being fake at the same time, some people will not get the message. For example, here in Northern Nigeria, we know we have a problem with the fa, that is F and P sound. So, when you're trying to, yeah? Hello?
With za.
Yeah, and za.
Za
Yes.
room.
Yes, it's the other room. So we need to really work on that. If you're a broadcaster or presenter, you need to make sure that you know how to pronounce these words correctly. So I think it's a good idea if we can be able to get proprietors of media organizations on board on this training. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'm sure before anyone else points it out, the phrase "can be able to" is also something that we need to guard against. It's we can or will, I think we will be able to, but we can be able to is questionable. And I saw someone here, before I go to the next two hands, okay, Belema is back. Somebody is asking, what should replace behoves us? Now, I think that's, okay, this is my sister, okay, yes, the lady with the Igbo Yoruba name. But I won't tell you that because that's part of what we say when it comes to learning. I only believe most of us have our phones with us, and it's something you can just Google. We don't have to come here and ask, so give me another word for behoves. I'm just trying to be practical now, that when we hear these things, we should quickly, instinctively grab our phones and check them out ourselves and get it right. We teach ourselves, we correct ourselves. We don't need to wait for anyone to tell us the right thing to do because we have all these things at our fingertips. I saw Belema back a few seconds ago. Belema, are you there? Before I go to Galaxy.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Go ahead, please. Yes.
Thank you very much. I've learned a lot, but then I am a new presenter, and I hear this thing a lot, and I want clarification on it. Some persons tell me that I should sound different from the way I sound on air, while some other persons would say that it's okay if you sound the same way. In fact, it's even better if you sound the same way. And there is this confusion within me, and I keep asking myself, which do I follow? So I don't know if I could get clarification on that.
Okay, well, the first question I'll ask is, what does your head of presentation tell you? Your head?
Nothing quite to that
is your head of
direction.
presentation satisfied with you?
Not on the tone of voice. I haven't heard any complaints on that. I haven't heard any complaint or compliment on that. But this comes from other presenters, like my colleagues in the office.
Okay, so how do you normally, are you being original? Are you being yourself?
Yes, I talk like myself normally, the way I would talk outside, the way I interact with any other person.
Have you gone for any form of training?
Just one. Although I didn't study mass communication, I did a swap. So
no,
I swapped from what I studied.
No,
Yes,
in presentation, training in presentation.
Yes, I have done one, just one.
So just stick to what you were taught and be yourself. That's all I'll tell you. Stick to what you were taught and be yourself, and don't allow anyone to push you into being what they want you to be. That's their idea. Be yourself. Don't force yourself to be something that you cannot, maintain for a long time. I'm sure we all remember this, one of these ads that the lady was giving all kinds of phone and everything. And then when the push came to shove, she said, it's packaging now. There's no need for unnecessary packaging. Just be yourself, so that if something happens, you can still remain yourself and not now. So I said, so she was just pushing in all this while. That wasn't really her. So that's why we say be as original as possible. So that even if you're caught unawares, you can still be yourself. It won't be difficult. It won't be too far from the real you. That's what we're saying. That's the way I see it. And I want to believe that's the way it should be. I hope you get that.
Bosset,
yes,
could I
Thank you,
add something to that? Could I add something to that?
Yes,
please?
before I bring on Mercy.
Hi,
okay,
Balama. Welcome to presentation.
Good morning.
Welcome to presentation,
much.
where the greatest room in the world is the room for self-development. Be yourself. Be comfortable in your skin. Try to be the best. Be a better you tomorrow than you are today. And then I think that's what I would have looked in the mirror and told my younger self as a presenter coming into this profession. Be yourself. Don't change for anyone. You would just be like a bad makeup being adorned on your face, and then you start cracking when you come under pressure. So be yourself and keep growing every day. Learn new words every day. Learn to pronounce new words every day. Listen back to yourself and tell yourself, be truthful to yourself in saying, I could have done better here and there. Okay? You all do great.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just take Mercy, and then after Mercy, I'll just wrap up with what I have here, and then for the few minutes we have left, we take any other comments that we have. So Mercy, let's have you before I just wrap up what I have.
Good morning, Ma. Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. The question I have is, how do I ensure that I pronounce the words that I should pronounce in the right way in such a fast-paced and quantity-driven media world? I mean, you start from reporting, and then the next thing you're reading the news, and the next thing you're a presenter, the next thing you're a producer, and you have to deliver on a daily basis. You don't have the time to sit down to say, okay, let me go through some of the bulletins that I've read to see if I need some corrections. You are exhausted at the end of the day. How do you get to keep quality in the world of quantity? Because this is one challenge that I'm facing right now in the industry, in Nigeria, in Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, could I ask, you multitask, that's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a bit of a challenge. Well, it would have been good for you to have had a particular foundation. For instance, I started off as a presenter, and then somewhere along the line, I found myself in the newsroom, and I was actually the editor. So I would finish editing the news, preparing the bulletin, and then I'm on my way to present it. Really, it's depending on what you're doing. If you're doing reporting, you're doing production, yes, it can be a whole lot. And I know that happens a lot in stations these days. You're the jack of everything, or of all the trades. It really shouldn't be. There should be some level of, delineation here and there. You can be a producer, you could be a presenter and an editor. I found that convenient because by the time I finished preparing the bulletin, by the time I'm going up to read it, it's quite easy because I was part of the editing process anyway. So it's very easy to go through it, and I just go through. But by the time you're adding so many other things, that's the house style, that's the the way you're given. So you just have to carve out a way for yourself. But most importantly, as a presenter, I mentioned that when we started way back in Lagos, then in Voice of Nigeria, we made sure that we drilled ourselves on the go. So you're in the newsroom, you're talking, you're ready to be corrected. You're speaking like a presenter, even while you're getting your report ready, you're doing your production, you're talking like a presenter. Someone is correcting you and you're accepting the corrections and you're going on. But if because you're involved in production, you change to preaching, who get this insert? You're not helping yourself because you're mixing two worlds. So stick, especially when you're in the office, at times, even when I'm at home for a long time, and everyone knows that that's just me because I wanted to get myself to a particular standard. So it would be better for you to make it a lifestyle, a way of, just make it your habit to talk as you would talk if you're on air. As a presenter, try as much as take notice of the words you're pronouncing, the words you come out in your production, note those things. So, for instance, when you're going to do your report, you can give it out properly, you deliver properly. So just make it a way of life and manage as you can your time, because I know you have a whole lot on your burner. So quickly, I can't say no to Teddy Bear, can I? All right, please go ahead, sir. After that, I'll just wrap up because I'm almost out of time. Ayoduro Dalasa, over to you.
Thank you very much, CHINYERE. It's a pleasure listening to you off the studio. And I'm so glad that our partners, we are one of those people we were looking up to when I was in Voice of Nigeria. I want to say, it's CHINYERE reading the news, and then I'll post it and listen. Just to buttress your point to the last question asked, I would like to implore her to do one thing, and that's read. Read, read, read. There is nothing that will be hidden to you. It's mostly in the pages of one book. Get a role model. Don't look up to these new gonna people on the radio. They don't help. They don't even know that they need training. They don't even realize what they're doing. Most of them pronounce their own names wrongly. So I would say, read. Yes, you're moving from one position to another. You're moving from one role to another. In very fast-paced media, as you put it. See, just read, listen, read, listen, read. As you're moving from being a producer, from being a reporter, just listen and read. Look, there's no way you will be within this industry and not notice at least one person who you know is doing this thing right. Mm-hmm. Listen to that person. Ask questions. Okay. When I was in Akure, we want to read the news. So just bring you what do we call that thing? They just bring you the news, bring you a news page while you're still reading. Breaking news. So you just have to just immediately, and those names are there. How do you get those names correctly? So in the newsroom, there's no way in your media house your media house is mostly a bit like there are some parties from whatever part of the country. An accent. We have that provincial thing in us. But then over time we've learned to overcome it, and we've learned to, do it the way we're supposed to do. Just read, ask questions, listen to tapes. Podcast is there now. It's just there. Everything is on the net. Everything. I know people don't DJ to the studios anymore. They don't even know what a DJ is. Exactly. But go on the net. Podcasts. There are so many podcasts that you can listen to. Maybe one of these days I'll do a research and drop some links in the group for people to just go there, download, listen. If you're driving, listen. If you're cooking, whatever you're doing, instead of playing, maybe reduce the time you play music on your phone or something. Listen to a podcast on broadcasting, on pronunciation, on presentation, on whatever. It's there. They're all on the net. I think you'll find more tools that would help you, navigate that world. That's all for me.
Thank you very much for that. And that also tells us that it would be good for every one of us to have a mentor, someone you look up to, somebody you not necessarily to copy, but someone who is a mentor in the profession that you can learn the good things from, not necessarily to be like that person, but you should have somebody. We all have somebody. I had quite a few of them, and one of them was Shola Omole. I used to love the way he used to read, and quite a few others that I loved listening to. Cyril Stober, Zachary Muhammad, of course Sonny Irabo, and a whole lot of them. They were the people I would love listening. I would always rush to go and listen to the news, not because I wanted to know what was in the news, but I just wanted to listen to their presentation, to their delivery, and get one or two things from them. So let's have our mentors, the right people anyway, that we listen to. So quickly, we've said a lot, and we've seen that a whole lot of these things are.
Ma'am,
you still cut me off. Okay, when am I wrapping up? I don't know. All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I won't do it again. Please, ma'am, forgive me. Forgive me.
It's okay.
I was going to ask my colleagues to tell us whether the 19th edition of Daniel Jones, the Cambridge English Pronouncing Dictionary, is out. But as you told us, because we should now be interested in where we could get easy knowledge. You don't just go to the internet to look up the pronunciation of a word. You go to the right source. So just go to Google and say to there. I'm sorry, ma'am, that's all I wanted to add, okay?
Okay. No, Google gives you the British pronunciation of words. Google gives us the British pronunciation of words, not just any site. But I'm just saying that these things are at our fingertips now. I mean, just go to the phone and you get it, and you get it right. There was a word I had to still check up even yesterday and stuff like that. It's all there. So it makes life easier for us. Just a little bit of sacrifice from our browsing, our YouTube browsing and all of that, just to check one of these things that will help us in the profession. So, well, we've seen a whole lot of these traps and what to do. Basically, like we said, is to prepare, cross-check our facts, have a memo pad or something. It could be on your phone, or if you want to have the hard copy, whichever, but have something that you can always refer to, where you put down some notes of your corrections, things you were corrected on, and you can always refer to it from time to time. Helps you check your progress. Self-development, please, like we said, let's take time. We've been emphasized here and there. There are a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of things on the net that we can touch. Then be focused and coordinated. We've said that presence of mind, no matter the challenge, no matter the problem, drop them at the gate. When you come in, do what you have to do. When you get back to the gate, if it pleases you, you can pick them up again, or you can leave them at the gate and go home, and you would have forgotten about it. Be time conscious. Presenters must be time conscious. Late coming is not acceptable for any reason whatsoever. You come in puffing and panting, so it doesn't help. Work on your emotions, keep them at bay. Work on your bad habits. Learn humility, learn to take correction and be teachable. So for me, concluding here, in case any other person has anything to say, we said every organization has a vision and a mission, and we are the drivers of this vision and mission. And if we fail to play our own parts in the broadcast chain properly, the way we should, then we're not helping. We're becoming more of a liability than an asset to our organization. And we wouldn't want to be that. So, and of course, we know that our profession is one that affects, it has to do with our personality. So we need to work on all of these things, take our attitude to the job, much more seriously than we can. Let's not be coincidental presenters. Let's be passionate about this job. It's not just a matter of, oh, I just got into presentation, I just found myself, I just sauntered in there. It was just, no. Even if that happened, try and develop a passion for it. That way you will make all these necessary corrections. And one thing we should note is that as a broadcaster, you can never be too meticulous. You can never. If you're given a script and you don't read through that script at least 3 times, then you're not serious about that script. It's not just to read through once and you're happy and you go on air with it. No, we should be ready to go through 2-3 times to get the best. So we must be meticulous as broadcasters and as presenters. Meticulous. Let's keep that in. Let's hold on to that. We must be meticulous, and we should, above all, set a goal of excellence for ourselves. Set a goal of excellence. I want to be the best here, and I want to be the original best, not the copy best. I want to be the original best. And that will motivate you to adhere to every other thing we've said. It will motivate you to self-development because you want to be the best. And finally, I hope Well, they talk about the greatest accomplishment, we say, is not to err or not to fall. Or how is it put now? The greatest accomplishment is not about never falling, but in when you do fall, you rise again after that fall. And that was said by some coach here. So it's not about falling, but it's about rising after that fall and making sure that you don't fall into the same trap or to the same pit that you've just come out from. And once we can get that, so we can summarize by saying that once we get out of a trap, we've identified it. Some traps are inevitable, but the way you handle it is what matters. And once you've learned from that, let's ensure that it never happens again. Well, so let's take on the challenge to be much better than we already are. They say it's no longer the sky. It's like, well, there's never been the sky is your limit. Wherever you want to get to, that's your own limit.
Wow.
All the best. I wish us the best.
BB's on a run to go. BB's on a run to go. But before BB takes over, before BB takes over, BB, permit me thank Mrs. Ashade. I want to tell her that her Hanatu story got me through reading 60 minutes the night my father died. Her Hanatu story is what did come into my head when she told me, like, it just came into me. I was about breaking down, and then I remembered her saying, Hanatu read the prime time news located arm. And Mrs. Ashade, your words of wisdom has kept many of us going at times, and we never get to say thank you. And for all my colleagues that always emphasize cold, would, should, walk, God is watching all of you. Keep the L at bay. Have a pleasant Saturday.
Are we getting her number, please?
Fantastic.
My doctor recommended her number, please. Please.
Fantastic.
Fantastic, baby. I'm out. I'm done.
Okay. If I may add something before we call it a day. So many things have been said. So many issues have been raised. Some suggestions have been made. But I think what is most important is the fact that we must understand that the
somebody's
Who is this, for crying out loud? What is this?
I'm fighting the person, and the person is still coming back. I've been trying to mute the person.
Ma'am, while that is happening, while that absurdity is going on, please, you must give us your number. Please, ma'am. Please. Okay?
0803517.
Wait, wait a minute.
I'm sorry, correction.
Maja, she is on the group. She is on the group.
I'm on the group anyway.
She's in the group. She's just on the group.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, then. Okay.
I'm one of the silent observers. Don't mind me. I'm very...
Look, ma'am, that's not fair. Goldfish has no hiding place. Silence on your part is criminality. Don't do it anymore.
Thank you.
We will still need the number, please.
Okay. I'm taking the correction now. Oh my God. 08035178458. 08035178458.
That bell toll is an indication that it's time to sign off. Fantastic BB has asked me to please call on Mr. Tony Ekata, Dr. Tony Ekata, for the vote of thanks. Dr. Tony?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, this your honorary doctorate without salary. I've been talking about it, but thank you. I don't know where to start. A lot has been said, and I just don't know. But I did mention when we were promoting this very training session that we're going to expect, get more than expected. And Wani has not disappointed at all. I take the license to call her Wani because in the 27 years or so that I was inborn, she was the only person until now calling me Anto. When we are speaking privately, she says Anto. So when she was talking about the attributes of a presenter and she mentioned warmth, she was the one that came to my mind. Warmth, cheerfulness. If you know about Juanita, please permit me to use that one now. If you know about Juanita, you would know how cheerful a human being she is, even right now, in the condition that she is in now. So she's actually the embodiment of everything she told us today. Everything she told us today. And I'm also happy that whatever we said here today is also what BGF is all about. Training and more training. That's all it is about. But the sad part is that, like they say, you are preparing medication for a madman. You have not asked him whether he's going to take it. That's what you see most of the time. And that is where I come into what Nwankego called the ITK syndrome. I too know. Some people think they know all of these things already, whereas they don't. You see the mistakes on the platform every day. But when you want to correct, some people, by way of ignoring what is being done there or some kind of comments, it's as if these ones they are proving I too know. Those of us who are regular on the platform would know what happened when Moses started to flag some mistakes and correct them. But that is all we do. If you are not on BGF already, I would like to invite you. I would actually love for people like Okwoche, Mike Okwoche, and Nwankego has said, because they have shown that they are interested, they are passionate about mentorship. And that's what we want to do. I would like to invite them to please come join us because we are doing a lot of work there and we still have a lot of work to do. So yeah, you talked about noise and you were looking for somebody to help you define noise, broadcasting noise. I think Mr. Ubaja did a fair job of that. Anything that is going to hinder the essence of your communication, which is comprehension and feedback, is noise. Any other thing, including the way you speak, including your pronunciations, including your diction. For instance, she said something, when she was saying that, she said something was pivotal to one other thing. And if instead of saying pivotal, you say pivota, it's pivota. You have thrown off the owners of the language. Remember now that we are not broadcasting to our own audience. Broadcasting is now global by reasoning of media convergence. So when you say it's pivotal, you've thrown that person off before they get to realize that maybe you were talking about pivotal. They've lost the trend of your narration. So that's very important. Let us say it the way it is, the standard way, whether you are original or not. Keep to the standard. This is how the British people said it must be spoken. So we speak it like that. Because somebody else said something about speaking it the British way. Maybe we even expand it to say the Commonwealth way, because I know that the British English is what is spoken in Commonwealth countries. So if you are not part of the Commonwealth, and then, or rather, if you are, and you are now speaking like an American as a professional, you have scored an own goal. That is not the way to go. Accept your flaws. Accept your flaws if you want to excel. She said that. And that also has to do with this ITK thing. When somebody is correcting you, why should you be angry? There is no end to learning. There's no end to learning. That's why I'm very happy that people like our veterans, Dr. Emeka Odikbo, Mr. Ken Ike Okere, Funke Treasure, Chukwudi Ogwaja, they came to attend this training session. Whereas
the young ones that are making most of the mistakes are not here because there's no end to learning. They are here. They've added value to what we already know. And I'm sure that along the line, they might pick one or two things that they didn't know. For instance, at the last training session by Mr. Ubaja, he said something about forte, not fort. You know, that's my forte. That's my strong area, not fort. I didn't know that until that day. I didn't know that Fort Oil, what I used to call Fort Oil by, I think, is about Tedola's station. Fort Oil is Forte Oil, that kind of thing. There is always room. There's always something new for you to learn. And you can't learn it if you run away from it. Is there something about intrusive grammatical glitches? We do a lot of that. That's why we have the BGF grammar referee, where we flag grammatical intrusions or glitches or infractions and try to correct them. But we don't have a lot of people participating in that exercise. We have a word a day. That's all about pronunciation, saying it the correct way. You say root because that's what it's saying in the Commonwealth countries. That's what your what do you call this thing again? Lingua franca, the one you have adopted. That's what it is, not route. You say anus, not anus. We point out these things and we correct them on the platform. Some of the people here join in doing that all of the time, and we're not going to stop. We have a problem with breaking news. She said something that I was just laughing. She said, if you are in pursuit of the hottest news, you just might get the hottest query. And I add that it might even be the hottest J sentence. Because libel, we talked about libel. This week on the platform, we talked about libel because of what people were posting. Things that are not verified. You just dump them because you see them running on other platforms. You dump them on a professional platform. No. And when people try to correct these things, some other people are showing, although we don't see their bodies, but we know that if we saw their bodies, they would be demonstrating with their body language that you should just leave them alone. You are not the only one who knows. But that when you try to correct, you are bearing in mind what Juanita started with, that the strongest chain is as strong as the weakest link. People will dismiss all of us when one of us makes an unpardonable blunder. They're going to say, these journalists. They're not going to mention the name of that person because they may not even know the name. They'll say, these Nigerian journalists. I know because I've been outside of Nigeria practicing for a couple of decades, or at least a decade. So I know when you are at a press conference and you say certain things and they're looking at you, you want to ask a question. I'm talking about both myself and some of my colleagues who come here to cover events, where they want to ask questions, and then the moderator or MC is saying, please say that again. And I would know immediately it's because of the pronunciation of the words they are using. And that's an embarrassment to me, because I'm a Nigerian. At the end of the day, they'll say, these Nigerians, which school did they attend? So let's all do this thing together. Nobody's being paid for it. Let's do it together for our own good, collective good. That's what it is. That's what it is. And that's why it's painful when we see some acclaimed veterans, those who have done this thing and they know it like the back of their hands. They sit on the fence. They assume observer status. They don't contribute to what we're doing. They don't contribute to training. They don't contribute to professional conversations. It's painful because the reason they are there, we thought, was for them to impart and impact. So you see, we were talking about that yesterday also, impart and impact. So impart knowledge to us, all of us, and impact us with their experience. So I use this opportunity to appeal to them, if they would hear, or anybody might help, if they may not be here, so please, let's do this together. We look up to them. It's particularly painful when you see some of these veterans, instead of contributing to professional conversations, they are posting and forwarding materials that are irrelevant, totally irrelevant. Some of them unverified. And you ask, say, "So what is the purpose of this? This group has a purpose, for God's sake. So what's the purpose of this group?" But you can't talk to them because some of them are your elders, and this is Africa. You must still respect your elders, you know. So that is that. Ayo says something about listening to others. You can't overemphasize that. Listen to others. When I joined Voice of Nigeria, I came from the classroom. I didn't study mass communication or journalism. But the first thing I did was to buy a small transistor radio. Wherever I was going, some people were calling me Malam. Wherever I was going, I was with the radio, listening to other people, listening to other stations. As I speak with you, I can't tell you any particular training program that I have attended because it's always been on the move. When I was at the Institute of Journalism in Ogba with Dr. Akirechi, that was when I was posted from Lagos to the State House in Abuja. You know, when I want to do one thing, I'm moved. When I want to do one thing, so what is left? What is left is what Glory called, I forget what she called it now, something the room for self-improvement. Self-improvement is the room to excellence, or, you know, I paraphrase. So what is the option for me? I learn. I use every opportunity to learn. I can't see a program. For instance, some of our members, they post links on the platform for you to listen to their programs or watch them. And you know, you see that some people don't even bother to look at those things. That is how I learn. I don't miss the opportunity to learn. And I want to also recommend that strategy. I know that is what Mr. Gbaja told us about that, how he learned from a young girl, the difference between kicker and rider. That's what it is. You're not too old, you're not too big, you are not too learned to learn. Funke told us about stress and word class. When it's a noun, there's a way you stress it. When it's a verb, there's a way you stress it. And that is what we keep saying on the platform. It is not enough to say this thing is wrong without saying why it is wrong. That's what we do. That's why when we do grammar referee, we say, okay, this thing is wrong. Why is it wrong? We talk about the word class. This is a parsing error. This is a verb. You should use a noun. This is a lack of concord, subject-verb agreement. You should use have instead of has for plural subject. So in short, please, I want to appeal to those who are not with us already to please come join us to learn and to add value to what we are doing. Please, that is broadcast, what do you call it? Broadcasters Global Forum. That's what it's all about. We have members across 13 countries of the world. So it's not about Nigeria. It's about global standard, global best practice. That is what we aim for. That is what we hope that our members will be able to fit into anytime, anywhere they are. You won't be thinking of, okay, they're going to disappoint or they're going to bring, collective embarrassment. So yeah, and even while we were doing this, I hope some of us noticed, while we were doing this, we were busy correcting each other, correcting one another. Somebody said can be able. And Juanita quickly pointed out that it is not can be able. The person that said that, I can assure you, I can bet my pension that in this our room now, that person is not the only person who has been using can be able. But Juanita has quickly corrected that as an example of pleonasm or tautology, you know, and there are many more. Should in case if. I had a colleague when we were at the State House, he would say, please keep one press statement for me, should in case if I don't come back early. Should, in case, if, they're all the same thing, and you just hammer all of them together. Should, in case, if, or you say during the time when. So we correct, like somebody also said here, with regards to, that's a very common error. With regards is greeting. It's usually the subscription, the subscription in when you're writing a letter. With regards, you sign off. With regards is different from with regard to. When you want to say with regard to, concerning this thing, in respect of this thing, or about this thing, you say with regard to. When you say with regards to, you are saying with my greetings to your family or something like that. But even for clarity, the best thing for you to do is to just look for the simplest one about what we were saying yesterday, instead of with regards to what we were saying yesterday. Use one word, concerning what we were saying yesterday. These are the kind of things that we try and learn on BGF. And once again, I want to thank Juanita very, very much. I just thank God for her life. If not for the grace of God, she wouldn't even be here to be talking to us now. Every day, I thank God for her life. She is an author, I hope you know. She is mentoring a whole lot of young girls, both physically and virtually. So that is one person that is impacting the world. And I pray that God will preserve her and empower her to continue in this mission. Somebody like Funke Treasure, I know you know, maybe some of you know what she's doing for young girls all over the world. It's in Nigeria, but these things are global. Her podcast, listen to her podcast on our platform. You will know the scope of what this lady is doing. And when you hear her speak, she's speaking like, some people would say, why is she speaking like that? She's doing her call. No, the same way, Ugwaja, I didn't do linguistics, or I'm not a presenter. I didn't do presentation courses and all of that, but I strive to try and say it the way people would understand me. And that is the way it should be. The way they will understand you. Don't bother whether somebody is thinking this one is doing Obasabi. Look at Juanita, for instance. How many of us know that she spent her infant years in the UK? But you will never hear her saying swing, or in it. She's saying it the standard way. As a professional, that is the way it should be. So let me not make it into another lecture series. I want to thank everyone here, because without you, nobody, as I used to say, nobody teaches an empty classroom. So thank you very much. Thank you particularly to the veterans. Thank you to Glory, who filled the space of the moderator, although she joined later. Fantastic. BB is always fantastic. She had some technical glitches, but she's here now. Technical glitches, not emotional glitches, mind you. And Callistus is always hosting us from Italy. Thank you so much. I know him very well. He's my younger cousin. I know the kind of job he does and the kind of time he squeezes into helping us on BGF. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. If you're not with us, please come join us, and let's do this again in 2 weeks. God bless you.
Yeah, Tony.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe you needed to tell us to learn to separate as regards from with regard to. That's where the confusion comes from. Okay?
Exactly.
Thank you, bro.
Exactly. Okay, like my sister told us that don't expect to be spoon-fed all the time. You have just, spotted that or flagged it. Let's go and check out the difference between as regards and with regard to. And don't even use with regards to anymore. So with regard to what he has just said, goodbye and God bless you.
Thanks for making my day, guys. God bless you all. I'm grateful for being part of this. Thank you.
God bless you too. Bye.
Who made my bossette cry? I just saw you clean the tears, ma'am. I just saw you.
You know
Yes,
her.
I just see
You
you.
know her.
Have a beautiful evening, bossette.
You know her. I'm sorry if I'm the one that made you cry, but I needed to say it as it is. That is me. I don't pretend. That's the way it is.
Dr. G.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.